part of the continuing initiatives for Construction Safety Week 2018, the CIF are very proud to continue involvement with the Pieta House. So last year, one of the core themes of Construction Safety Week was to mind our workers. We want to continue that along those lines with the support of Pieta House. So I'd like to be joined by Pauline Bergin of Pieta House, who's going to discuss mental health. Thank you.
So hello everybody, and my name is Pauline Bergin and I work for Pieta House. I'm a psychotherapist and I work with all our clients from children to adults. I'm also a qualified supervisor, so I work with our wonderful therapists in supporting them. Today I want to talk to you about mental health. I want to talk to you about Pieta House and what we can do for you. And I want to tell you about some of the signs and symptoms of suicide and also some of the discussions around self-harm. So I hope that's of some benefit to you. So you might wonder where the name Pieta came from. So I wanted to let you know that the name actually comes from the statue by Michelangelo. And when Joan saw this picture in the book, she thought about the compassion that's there within Mary's eyes for the broken body of Jesus. And it brought her to a place of understanding around compassion and care. And she wanted to extend this to many of our clients. So the service was founded back in 2006, and our client base is targeted at people who are experiencing suicidal ideation. Now, what I mean by suicidal ideation is that people who are struggling with living their lives have thoughts around suicide. They're struggling within what was happening in their lives, and they're thinking about suicide as an option. We also work with people who have attempted to take their lives, and also people who are engaging in deliberate self-harm. And to explain to you what deliberate self-harm means, this is where a person is struggling with anxiety or stress, and self-harm is a defense mechanism to cope with those feelings that are overwhelming at times. So we can help you in all of that area. We provide one-to-one therapy where the foundation is rooted in compassion and care. So that's one-to-one with a psychotherapist. Let's look at our expansion over the last 11 years. As you can see that there's been 14 centres. The first one opened in Lucan in 2006. Our hope is that we can be within 50 to 100 kilometres of every county in Ireland, and that's something we're working on right now. So just to speak to you about some statistics, we have over 40,000 people who have come through our doors since we opened in 2006. And I present to you a breakdown of the age range and gender, but just paying attention in particular to some of the areas that we would have concern around is the 25 to 44 males and the under 18s as well. This would be some of our statistics that would be a little bit higher. So if you can notice that slide, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. We've taken in there the suicide ideation, bereavement and self-harm. So the Pieta Way, all our therapists are professionally qualified and accredited, and the team is made up of psychotherapists and counselling psychologists. We are aware how difficult it is at times to come into our service, so all of our staff, and that would be our volunteers and our receptionists, are all trained in the Pieta Way to understand suicide and to confront perhaps their own attitudes and beliefs around suicide. All of our therapists are trained in the Pieta Way, where we aim to lift suicide ideation and to replace deliberate self-harm with deliberate self-care. So now the real work begins. I want to tell you about how we do the work. So we offer you one-to-one therapy to all our clients. So when you make a phone call, you're invited into Pieta House for an assessment. And this is to make sure that we are the right service for you. And we want to understand exactly what's going on for you. So there is no referral necessary. You can make a phone call for yourself perhaps, or you can make a phone call on behalf of your loved one. And we can set up the appointment there and then for you. The assessment will be offered to you within 48 hours of your phone call. And all our services are free. So we want to offer what's called a user-friendly attitude. So we are aware of how difficult it is to come into Pieta House and how difficult it can be sometimes by people who are embarrassed by this. So we want to offer you warmth and comfort. So when you arrive at our front door, straight away, the nurturing begins. We want to welcome you and we want to offer you a cup of tea to show support for the experience you might be having. Key support. I want to speak to you about the fact that so many of our clients have family who are concerned and worried about their loved one. So we can now offer to your family member 6 sessions of support on how to support the loved one who may be attending Pieta House. This is also a free service and it's offered to you by one of our psychotherapeutic graduates. So bereavement counselling. I want to talk to you about bereavement counselling because again, so many of our client base are talking to us now about the loss they've had through their family members who are bereaved by suicide. I want to know that we understand that there may be stigma attached to suicide. There may be silence in the grief, and you may be questioning what could you have done or why you did not see the signs. I want to talk to you also about our great helpline, which is available now 24 hours a day, 7 days per week. And whether you're calling us for the very first time or whether you're a client of ours in our services, you are welcome to call this number. This number will be answered by qualified psychotherapists who are well versed and educated in the trauma of suicide and self-harm, and they'll be able to support you in between your appointments with us, or to offer you an opportunity to make a phone call to us to start your therapy. And that number is 1-800-247-247. So let's look at some common risk factors that we have experienced within the suicide question. So the first question we'd ask of all of our clients is a history of suicide attempts. If there's been a history of suicide attempts around yourself, then we would talk to you about moving forward with a safety plan. Is there a history of suicide attempts or completed suicide in the family? And sometimes we look at what's called the contagion element, whereby friends and neighbours have completed suicide. And sometimes it's very difficult for children who have lost a loved one or a friend to suicide, and perhaps they don't understand the seriousness of suicide. So we need to spend some time supporting and educating our clients around that. We also look at if there's been a psychiatric illness. Within Pieta House, we are not equipped to work with people who are struggling with a psychiatric illness, but this will all be addressed in the assessment. We also look at a common risk factor where marital status apparently decreases the risk of suicidal ideation. We look at, most importantly, that 97% of the people who present to Pieta House are struggling with suicidal ideation, whereby they're struggling with life events. They can be financial ruin, relationship breakups, the loss of your job, the loss of relationship. It goes across the board. And this would be significant presentation of people around the country who are struggling with living their lives, and they're really struggling to hold on to the fact that there is hope. And finally, another piece that would be also a risk factor would be facing a prison sentence. You know, that's a difficult piece for all of us. But again, there's a whole area of life events that are struggled for everybody. So you're welcome to come to us, but we would have experienced these as common risk factors. Let's talk about now perhaps the myths and facts of suicide, because we're all quite unsure perhaps what brings suicide to a person's table. So one of the first myths with people who talk about suicide will never complete it. The fact is 80% of people who've completed suicide have told someone how they felt in the months beforehand. This is not to remind you that you could have done more, but it's to also open our eyes up to recognize that some people, you know, they may talk about it. It does not mean they will not complete. There is usually some sign or some symptom that I want to help you recognize and support your loved one. The second myth would be only clinically depressed people kill themselves. This is not true. In fact, a lot of people who end their lives have no history of depression. They are reacting to life events. And in my experience as a psychotherapist, I would say half of my caseload would be people who've never experienced depression, but are struggling through a very difficult life event. So you don't have to be depressed to consider suicide. The next myth would be suicide is attention seeking. It actually increases the risk of people attempting again and completing it. So if a person wants to talk to you about suicide, don't assume that it's attention seeking, because they may need to talk about it, and you listening might be of great help to them. Another myth would be talking about suicide encourages it. Well, I would disagree wholeheartedly, because talking about suicide can save a life by encouraging someone to seek help. So every day in my work as a therapist, I speak with people who may be talking to me about a plan. So in talking to me, I can help disable the plan and offer them some hope. So I'm happy to talk all day about suicide if it helps a person move towards living. Another myth is if someone's going to end their lives, there is nothing anyone can do to prevent it. Well, I've just said the first important thing that we can do is disable the plan. Our absolute belief in Pieta House is that most people don't want to die by suicide. They just want the pain to stop. And that's a very significant piece I want you to remember today. There is always ambiguity right up until the end. The nature of the human is that they don't want to die, but they're struggling to live. And this is where Pieta House really wants you to hear the messages that will support you right through. So APR, ask, persuade and refer, is the equivalent to CPR. And it means to stay and to ask the questions, persuade somebody in your family or your life, and refer them on to Pieta House. So let's talk now about some of the signs and symptoms of suicide. Again, let me note to you that we don't often see the signs and symptoms of suicide, but they are there. So if we are concerned, then we can step forward and help people if we see any of these emotional changes in a person's life. So crying or emotional outbursts, or complete isolation, or somebody who used to be very open is closing down, a change of mood, not feeding or caring for animals that they once loved or would have spoken about. Loss of interest in things they once loved. So think about perhaps, you know, attending a rugby match or going to a football match or missing the training or not going for a pint perhaps after the training or things like that. Withdrawing from relationships. So they don't want to be around other people. They don't want other people to see how low they're becoming. Threats or statements sometimes of I have no future or no light at the end of the tunnel or I don't want to be a burden or I feel like I'm a burden. That's a very significant one because they have already sort of given themselves a really, really hard time in the thoughts around suicide. So we can really help move forward. Giving away possessions. And also if they've experienced a significant loss, like the loss of a relationship or the loss of a job or the death of somebody that mattered importantly to them. So these are observable changes. They're not always there to see. So we have to keep our minds open to what's going on in our loved ones. So our vision at Pieta House is to create a world where suicide, self-harm and stigma are replaced by hope, self-care and acceptance. So I'd like to talk to you now about Darkness into Light. 80% of our resources come from our many fundraisers around the country and we're more than grateful for that. But our biggest fundraiser is our Darkness into Light, and that happens in around May of every year. And that's where we start walking at 4:15 in the morning into the light. And it's a great opportunity to bring people together and to be able to share the darkness and bring everyone into the light. And that's just a slide there to show you all the locations that presently the Darkness into Light happens in. So we've gone as far as Australia, Dubai and into Iceland. So self-care, one of the most important things I want to get across to you today is how important it is for us all to self-care ourselves. So let's look at the best 6 doctors. There's sunshine, which is not available very often to us in Ireland, but we've had a good run of it. Even today is a lovely day. Plenty of water, plenty of rest, and that is to take appropriate time to get rest if you're tired. Get out into the fresh air. It's a good way to remove that kind of fuzziness feeling that you might have on a day. Get out and walk, get in some sunshine, get in some exercise, and also healthy eating. But what's most important is to pay attention to the stuff we're not doing to take care of ourselves that might help lift any of the darkness that's happening at the moment. So the good news that I want to leave you with is there's always ambiguity right up until the end. And that means that we truly believe at Pieta House that people don't want to die, but they're struggling to live. And that's where the work comes in, the one-to-one therapy helps people to believe that there is hope and that you can get through this very difficult situation. It is our instinct to survive. So if we carry hope, ask, persuade and refer. And as I mentioned previously, you can prevent a plan by simply disabling a plan. So I would openly ask our clients every day, do you have a plan? You know, so we can start to talk about those situations as they come and see us. So remember a message of hope. We all struggle in life from time to time. With the right support, we can get through it. A sense of love and belonging makes it easier for us to stay in the world. So remember, knowledge is power, and knowing what to look out for in your own self-care and in the self-care of others. So thank you for your time today.